Good evening and warm welcome to all the participants. You are now on 112th WiseViews Leadership Conversation. It is a great delight for us this evening to have Mr. V.V. Lakshmi Narayana garu. Please join me in welcoming sir. Sir, good evening and welcome to this conversation.
Yeah, good evening, Sudhakar and also Dr. Prasad and also all the participants.
It is such a great delight that I thought it will be very difficult to approach you, and given the public image, I thought it is difficult to actually get a date from you for us to learn on this conversation, but it has been the easiest, I must confess, compared to all the 112 leaders who have come here and spoken to us every Friday. To that end, grateful to you, sir. Thank you so much.
So I'm not a leader then.
You are a great leader. It's a great leader in itself.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. I will share my screen and do a brief introduction and then hand it over back to you, sir. These WiseViews leadership conversations are held typically on Friday evenings. We are on 112th session. We have Mr. Lakshmi Narayana garu, who is going to speak on white collar fraud, patterns and prevention. So this intro and talk will be till 7 p.m. and after that we'll have Q&A for about 30-40 minutes. And then a brief sum up. That's the agenda. And I take great privilege in reading out this introduction of this wonderful guest and leader that we have with us this evening. It's a very interesting profile that showcases a remarkable blend of academic achievements, a distinguished career in law enforcement, and a deep commitment to social causes. His contributions have made a significant impact on society, exemplifying his dedication to public service and nation building. Having served in the Indian Police Service, Mr. Lakshmi Narayana made significant contributions during his tenure. He joined the IPS in 1990 as part of the Maharashtra cadre and took voluntary retirement in the year 2018 of April. Throughout his career, he held various positions of responsibility, including Superintendent of Police in Gadchiroli, Nanded, Pune. He also served as the Commandant of the State Reserve Police Force in Pune and as Deputy Commissioner of Police in both Mumbai and Pune. Mr. Lakshmi Narayana's commitment to combating terrorism led to his appointment as the Deputy Inspector General, DIG of the Anti-Terrorism Squad in Mumbai. He further expanded his expertise in law enforcement as the Joint Director of the Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI, in Hyderabad. His contributions to maintaining law and order earned him prestigious accolades such as the Internal Security Medal from the Government of India and the Hard Duty Medal from the Government of Maharashtra. In 2006, he was honored with the Indian Police Medal for Meritorious Service, and in 2017, he received esteemed President's Police Medal for Distinguished Services. Beyond his professional commitments, Mr. Lakshmi Narayana has been actively involved in various social and philanthropic activities. His commitment to public service is evident through his extensive community engagement initiatives. He has donated blood a remarkable 61 times, demonstrating his dedication to helping others in need. Environmental conservation is another area of focus for him, as he personally facilitated the planting of 15,000 samplings. Mr. Lakshmi Narayana's passion for youth development led him to interact with over 30 lakh young individuals as an active member of Lead India, an initiative inspired by the late Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. He has also adopted multiple villages, including Chinnamandadi in Mahbubnagar, where he spearheaded significant positive changes. In addition, he has supported a tribal school in Vinar near Bhiwandi and extended his assistance to villages affected by kidney disease, such as Sahalaputtuga in Srikakulam district in AP and Sitarampuram in Vijayanagaram district of AP. To further his philanthropic endeavors and promote rural development, Mr. Lakshmi Narayana established the Join for Development Foundation, JDF. Sir is also popularly known as JD because of the position that he held. So this JDF gels very well into a recognizable name. The foundation focuses on empowering farmers, supporting youth, and driving positive change in rural India. Mr. Lakshmi Narayana holds a BTech in Mechanical Engineering from NIT Warangal and an MTech in Mechanical Engineering from IIT Chennai. Currently, he is pursuing a PhD in Rural Development at the University of Bombay. Thank you once again, sir. This is a wonderful profile. I really enjoyed reading this out. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us. I will take one more moment to introduce my esteemed senior colleague, Professor R. Prasad. He is the Director of Academic Wing at ICFAI Group. He brings a rich 3 decades of experience as an entrepreneur, as a corporate professional, and as a successful academic now at ICFAI Group. He holds a BTech in Electronics and Communication from IIT Bombay and a PGDM from the prestigious IIM Kolkata. He published several books, articles, and papers, both in India and abroad. Welcome, Professor Prasad.
Thank you.
Sir, we are eagerly waiting to learn from you, and over to you. We will conserve all the time that's available to listen to you and draw insights and inspirations from your own story of how you have handled firsthand the white-collar frauds and also your overviews on how to prevent that. Over to you, sir, and thank you once again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Sudhakar Rao garu, and also Professor Dr. Prasad garu, and also all the participants who have come. I think on the screen I am seeing about 24 participants. Maybe it may be a YouTube live also, as I could see from your this thing. So, I mean, I generally say policing is common sense and law is codified common sense. So basically, I mean, policing is nothing but using your common sense and investigating. I mean, there are a lot of things, the techniques and other things you are taught. And also as the time is progressing, a lot of computer and IT related things are also creeping in into our day-to-day life. Today, without them, we cannot survive also. So all these things are going to prove a big platform for the criminals to enter into our fold and do whatever they want if you don't take adequate precautions. It's like your home, you take so many precautions of having good lock and other these things. And also you have a compound wall and other things, and you have a security kept at the gate and all. So all these things are going to prevent the actual burglaries and other house breakings. Similarly, but when it comes to our maybe your bank accounts or other things, I mean, we are not taking those many precautions. That's why every day in newspapers you see so many people getting into this cyber crime. They are all becoming cyber crime victims. So corruption has been there since ages. I mean, if you see Kautilya's Ardhashastra also, in which he explained about there are 40 ways of embezzlement and how the fraud can be committed of the king's money. So he used to take a lot of precautions and all. So when you see the entire history of independent India also, we started off with few scams, purchase of jeeps and other these things. Then Santanam committee was formed. Then CBI came into existence in the form of a special police establishment. Then the Delhi Special Police Establishment came. Finally, the Central Bureau of Investigation started functioning. This is how it is. And also what I see is from the conventional side, we are getting into the non-conventional mode of crime also. Because earlier conventional mode of crime is going to be very predominant, like burglaries, murders, and such type of things. But of late, if you see, a lot of economic offenses have been taking place, and they are in very big number. Now, the title for today's discussion, or the topic for today's discussion, is white-collar crime or white-collar fraud, and what are the trends that are there now, and how we can prevent. So this is the topic given by Dr. Sudhakar Rao garu to me. And I mean, because I thought a bit of presentation, I have prepared a small PowerPoint presentation. I am also a mechanical engineer. I keep brushing my knowledge on this, whether I'm in touch with all these new technologies or with this MS Word or PowerPoint. So I attempted one presentation. So I'll try to share my screen with you, and then in the process we keep discussing, and then once I finish, we can have an interactive session also, as indicated. As I was mentioning, this conventional and non-conventional offenses. I mean, I have been saying conventional offenses have been in existence, like theft, burglary, murder, etc. Generally, these conventional offenses, if you take, suppose somebody kills somebody, so it is going to affect the individuals, or maybe the family, or maybe the people who are living around, maybe the relatives. And generally, these conventional crimes are generally, there are 3 causes which have been said. Poverty is one of the things. Then, of course, wealth is another this thing, and disputes over women, marriage, and other things. That is another important thing. And also, victims are those affected by the offense. So, victims are only few limited. So, when you come to non-conventional offenses, it's of more of recent origin, and also it affects the entire society. Suppose, say, somebody commits a crime against a bank. So take the case of S Bank. So what happened in the S Bank case, all the account holders, they got affected. Or if you take any other fraud like Harshad Mehta's scam or the Satyam scam, all these things, it was not limited to few people, but the entire society got affected. So these are non-conventional offenses. We call them as, sometimes we name them as white collar crimes and economic offenses also. The basic issue why these are non-conventional or unconventional crimes are increasing in number, it's all because of the greed in an individual. That's why Mahatma Gandhi always said, in the world, there is a lot to satisfy everybody's need, but you can't satisfy everyone's greed. So once a person becomes greedy, so he starts indulging into these type of economic offenses or the white collar crimes. And also, as I was mentioning, in the conventional crime, you have only few people as the victims, whereas the victims can be the whole nation and sometimes an ignorant victim also. Sometimes somebody may not be knowing that his account is being, money is being withdrawn from his account, but he becomes an ignorant victim also. So this is the basic difference between a conventional and a non-conventional. As I was mentioning, this is what the great Mahatma Gandhi ji said. The world has enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. What are the economic offenses? So they are the illegal acts committed by individual or group of individuals I was mentioning. And basically they want to obtain some financial or some professional advantage. The basic, or if you see all the economic offenses and if you analyze, the offender's principal's motive is economic gain. He wants to gain economically. He wants to enrich himself. So some of the examples you see: cyber crimes, tax evasion, robbery, selling of controlled substances, and abuses of economic aid are all comes under economic crimes. And cheating and generation of black money are the motives. As I was mentioning about the greed also, generally cheating is one component. Sometimes forgery is also another component. Preparing documents is also another component. And ultimately what happens is it generates a black money in the process, and then finally it gets laundered. So all these offenses, the consequence is the money laundering also. So money laundering also forms part of these economic offenses, which I will be dwelling in due course of time. As I was mentioning, it's an onslaught on the entire humanity, done quietly in a highly sophisticated manner. That's why I mentioned about a decision of the Supreme Court also in the Harshad Mehta's case in 93. They said, generally, the conventional offenses or a murder may be committed in a broad daylight because of some anger or because of some revenge, whereas economic offenses are planned in air-conditioned rooms. All people with a lot of intelligence, they all sit together and they check out how the cheating has to be done, and that is very, very dangerous. And also existence of these economic offenses sometimes become very difficult to recognize. For example, if you take Satyam case, people were thinking that the company has been doing extremely well and people were investing their hard-earned money into the shares of Satyam. But what was going on inside, nobody knew. So a fraud of that magnitude is happening inside. It is very difficult, or the existing of such a scam is very difficult to recognize. Only when the things go beyond control, they become exposed, and that is how people also, or the victim also, they also come to know. So as I was mentioning, what are these types of economic offenses? I mean, a term called white collar crime. This was actually Mr. Sutherland has given this definition. He says any crime committed by a person of respectability and high social status in the course of his occupation is called the white collar crime. What all corporate crimes you see, the bribery that is happening or the kickbacks, the concept of insider trading, embezzlement, I mean, sometimes the cyber or the computer crime, copyright infringement, as I was mentioning, money laundering, identity theft and forgery, because these are not the crimes that are committed by somebody down the line. So these are all the crimes committed by people who are sitting at a very respectable position in the organization, and also they also have high social status also. And because of that, it is called a white collar crime. So as I was mentioning, all these are non-violent crimes. There is no weapon or there is nothing involved. It's a non-violent crime. And also people who are at high helm of affairs, they commit. And there may be a personal gain or there may be a corporate gain also for them. and they definitely have broader impact on the economy and the financial systems and the public trust also. Series of such type of white collar crimes is going to disturb the reputation of the nation also. Suppose if the nation comes or the world comes to know that in this country there are so many scams that are happening, automatically the other countries will not find interest in investing their money, or the FDIs and all. It becomes very difficult to attract. So one should not think that it's only a crime committed by few individuals, but they are committing crime against the nation. It's an anti-national act actually. So that is also a danger. As I was mentioning, the Ponzi schemes, this Madoff scheme or other schemes, which I'll deal with it subsequently, the insider trading, informing the inside information to the outsiders, or taking the insider information and trying to play around. Embezzlement, of course, accounting fraud like Satyam, then false billing, money laundering, tax evasion, as I mentioned earlier, identity theft and intellectual property theft also, they come under the white collar crimes. So having said so, when there is a white collar, there must be so many other collars also. Why only one collar? So there is another set of crime that is called blue collar crimes. So these are basically committed by the people for their personal needs. The earlier one is also personal need, but it is committed by people who are at a higher level. And these blue collar crimes are driven by desperation, personal gain, and peer pressure. They are basically confrontational things like the robberies. Somebody accosts you and they try to loot your money. So they all come under the blue collar crimes. And there is always a direct interaction between the offender and the victim. There is an always, suppose you are going on your bike or maybe a car, somebody waylays and stops you and takes out money from you. Actually, you get interaction with him. The perpetrator or the offender and the victim, they get direct interaction. And also the amounts are not so huge. The amounts are not so huge as we mentioned in the white collar. Then there is another red collar crimes also. I mean, there is a concept called red collar crimes. This word, Mr. Frank Perry has introduced this. Suppose the white collar crimes, the criminals, they came to know that their perpetration of the crime has been detected. Somebody comes to know that these people are indulging in the fraud. Then what they do is they try to eliminate these people by killing them, or maybe by assaulting them, or maybe kidnapping them. Then such type of things, they are called red collar crimes. That means white collar crime, when it get exposed, in order to protect them, they try to indulge in these offenses. So these crimes are called red collar crimes because they want to conceal their crime and they want to avoid their conviction also in the courts. So they want to eliminate these witnesses in the process. So this is what is called red collar crimes. There is another thing called pink collar crimes also. Pink collar crimes. Generally, these crimes are committed by low and middle level female workers in the organization. It mostly pertains to embezzlement of small amounts, and it is coined by Mr. Ketin Daly in 1980. Then there is another thing, plaid collar crime. This is another set of crime wherein the crime committed against the farmers. So this is called plaid collar crime. That means theft of crops, theft of farm equipment, theft of farm stocks. So these are all called the plaid collar crime. So basically, it affects the farmers and the farm workers. So this is another category of crime. There is another crime called green collar crimes. Green collar crimes. So basically, there are so many environmental laws which we have enacted. So violation of these laws and people who violate, and those crimes are called green collar crimes, and those people are called green collar criminals. Say, for example, felling of trees, illegal wildlife exports, illegal fishing, illegal dumping, and polluting the lakes or polluting the rivers. All these things come under the green collar crimes. So then finally, the category is called black collar crimes also. Black collar crimes are committed by the clergies or the religious leaders. Generally, these crimes do not come out because the people who are supporting that person will try to hide these crimes. So that means now you don't have a choice, because earlier we thought only people who are having white shirts or the white collars only commit crime, because there are so many colors which are added now. So you have white, you have blue, you have green, you have pink, and you have red, and finally you have black. So all these things are the different types of crimes that are existing in the society. When it comes to CBI, because this organization I worked, CBI generally about economic offenses, what they talk about is increase in economic offenses during the recent years has by far outstripped the increase of conventional crime. So of late, conventional crime, as I mentioned earlier, it has come down. So most of the time it is the economic offenses that are taking place, and also a common man is also getting affected. So in the coming years, we are going to witness various types of new types of economic crimes. People try to manufacture new crimes or new modus operandi, and they keep on committing, and we have to be extremely careful. I mean, because people are coming out with various new forms of crime because of this increased globalization, and we are also all connected now. We are all connected. So because of that, also committing a crime has become very easy. It is not necessary that you have to stay at a particular place to commit a crime in that particular place. You can be anywhere in the globe and still you can commit the crime. Then the issue of investigation of those crimes and bringing those offenders to book is also a very difficult challenge, and it's a challenge for the law enforcement agencies and the investigating agencies also. As I was mentioning, in the year 1987, state of Gujarat versus Mohanlalji Jitmal Porwal, Supreme Court in this particularly mentions about the Harshad Mehta's case. It is, they say the entire community is aggrieved if the economic offenders who ruin the economy of the state are not brought to book. A murder may be committed in the heat of moment upon passions being aroused. An economic offense is committed with cool calculation and deliberate design, with an eye on personal profit regardless of the consequence to the community. So this is very, very important. And also such type of crimes are going to damage, it is going to damage the national economy and the national interest also. So we should not leave these economic offenses or the white collar offenses, and we have to take extreme precautions. And also we should see that these people, they get convicted also. And also whenever you giving a bail to a economic offender, Supreme Court has made a specific observation. Economic offenses, they say they constitute a class apart and need to be visited with a different approach in the matter of bail. The economic offense having a deep-rooted conspiracies and involving huge loss of public funds needs to be viewed seriously and considered as grave offenses affecting the economy of the country as a whole, and thereby posing serious threat to the financial health of the country. So this is the magnitude. I thought I should first introduce the magnitude of these economic offenses or the white collar crimes, and how the courts are approaching them, and how the law enforcing agencies or the investigating agencies are looking at them, and what are the difficulties being posed with the technology and other things taking place. I mean, this is about the white collar frauds or white collar crimes, and what are the trends which we are talking about. So it started somewhere in the 90s. If you see the white collar crimes or the economic crimes, after this liberalization and globalization, these economic crimes have increased, and these have caused havoc in the banks, public sector undertakings, telecom sector, you name this sector, these sectors have been affected. So these are some of the white collar crimes: fraud and false statements, money laundering, of course, embezzlement, tax evasion, extortion, and insider trading, as we have already discussed. Let us see what are the major white collar frauds that have happened in our nation. The first and the thing that is, I mean, after the liberalization and the globalization, the first economic white collar fraud that affected the nation was the Harshad Mehta securities scam. That is in 1992. It happened in Mumbai, and we used to be called as a big bull. And the total security scam that happened, it was about between 2,000 to 4,000 crores. And he started colluded with the bank employees. Generally, if you see all white collar crime, there is always a collusion between the offender and also the public servants. Then only they can perpetrate the crime. And this is what it has finally led to an amendment act also, which has come. Then we got this Ketan Parekh scam of 2001. So how Ketan Parekh, his shares, because he used to buy those 10 shares, they used to be called as K10 shares. So he used to use circular trading. He created a lot of artificial volumes, and he rigged the stock prices and the market downturn happened. This is what a lot of people, innocent people, have been affected, because it is all artificial hike or the hype which he created. In the process, I started investing my money. So that is how a large number of people got affected. And next one is of course, the Satyam auditing fraud, which I happened to supervise this case when I was in the CBI. So how this case has happened, and also it's a case study by itself, how it happened. Because if you all know, Enron case is one case which has affected the US economy and all. So a lot of components in various frauds that have happened across the globe, all the components have been found in this Satyam accounting scam, how it happened, how the accounts were fudged, and how the fictitious fixed deposit receipts, FDRs, have been shown, and how the whole thing has been managed. I mean, it's a case study by itself, how it happened and all. And ultimately, I mean, they could not sustain the pressure, and finally he had to come out and say that he has been riding a tiger without knowing how to get out of it, get down from it. So that is how he disclosed, and subsequently the CBI investigated, and finally the case ended in conviction, and the appeal procedure is going on. The other one is the Sahara Group scam, which you all know. It happened somewhere in 2010, where a lot of people started investing their money in this company. More than 24,000 crores has been invested. And finally, a lot of Supreme Court intervention and SEBI's intervention has happened. And now the Sahara companies are supposed to refund the entire money that has been collected. Then, of course, the Vijay Malaya and Kingfisher case, which has happened in 2010. You all know, because it is about 9,000 crores, how this case has happened. Then the other one is the Nirav Modi Mehul Choksi case, that is also Punjab National Bank, amounting to about 14,000 crores. So this is another major white collar fraud that has happened in the recent times, and we are still yet to bring them, maybe Nirav Modi or Mehul Choksi, because they committed the crime and they crossed the borders. Now a procedure of extradition has to be followed, because we have to go and convince the courts in those nations that this person has committed a crime, and there is a dual criminality. That means we have to prove that the case for which he is charged here is a criminal case in that country also. Once those courts get convinced, then only they can be extradited to this place. So this is where the Indian government is fighting in different places to get them back here. And also another major white collar frauds are the Ponzi schemes. That means they assure you that they give you a lot of money. Invest with us and you get more money than what you get in the banks. Like what the Stock Guru India Ponzi scheme, and also Speak Asia Online. And also these are various Ponzi schemes that have happened. So earlier people from, I think one village in Tamil Nadu, they used to come and they used to keep things on display. Maybe a refrigerator, maybe a gas stove and all. So they used to take deposits from people, and initial few people they used to give them. Then that all other people used to get a lot of confidence, and they start investing so much of money, and one fine night they used to leave that place. That is what is used to happen in our villages. But now these Ponzi schemes have taken their place, and a lot of money. If you see this, almost it is 5,000 crores, it is 2,300 crores is the Speak Asia Online fraud. So this is also, we need to be extremely careful. Then, of course, the insider trading cases. These are another white collar crimes that are happening. What happened with Mr. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, and what happened with Kishore Biyani's case, and also Future Retail, and also in the NDTV or Mr. Pranay Roy's case. These are all the insider trading. That means the insider information has been used to gain economically. Then this is what it is. I mean, all these scams, all these white collar frauds that have taken about 61,260 crores so far. So this is the magnitude of these various crimes. Because if you take PSU banks, it is almost 8,700 crores. And Bank of Baroda, it has reported 389 frauds. And if you say Bank of India, State Bank of India has reported 1,069 cases. So also so much of white collar crime is going on in the country. So that means it cannot happen without the connivance of the people. That's why in most of the cases, the Prevention of Corruption Act is also being used to rope in these public servants who are doing it. This is of this tax fake billing case. These are fake billing case. If you see, it is almost 705 fake bills, GST fraud cases, which I was mentioning. It also amounts to about 2,500 crores. Then you have major white collar frauds which are happening. This is money laundering. If you see the money laundering list also, these are the major, but through the shell companies, what they do is they are called suitcase companies or the shell companies. There is nothing, because in fact, during our investigations, we visited Kolkata. There is a big building in which there are about 3,000 shell companies. If you go inside, there is nothing. Only one table, chair, and one watchman. That watchman is a director in 20 companies. You give money there, and they cut their commission, and at the end of the day, they do so many iterations, and ultimately the black money is converted into white money through these shell companies. This is what is money laundering happen. The word laundering has also come from laundry. So if you go to laundry, you put your soiled cloth and they do the laundering process and give you a white shirt. So in the same process, laundering is nothing but put your black money there, it will come as a white money. That means it will be shown as a genuine investments. That is what is laundering. This is what is the cases. Then of course, tax evasion is also one of the biggest white collar crime in our country. If you see just the GST evasion, there are total number of GST evasion cases are about 57,000 cases have been registered so far. So now the thing is, having said so, what is the white collar fraud and what are the trends, and then how these white collar crimes can be prevented? That is also part of the discussion. So actually prevention is always good. If you are all alert and the systems are good, then these white collar frauds can be reduced or it may be minimized. So, I mean, some of the things, there are so many acts which are there, legislations, the Companies Act is there, PMLA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act is there, Essential Commodities there, the, as I was mentioning, Prevention of Corruption Act is there, IT Act is there. So there are so many acts, so many legislation. So the important thing is the enforcement of these legislations is very, very important. Just making a legislation, it is not going to cure the thing. The agencies who are responsible for it have to enforce them properly. And also the people who are caught, immediately their trial should take place. Generally what is happening in this country is it is taking years together. Some cases are pending for 15 years, 20 years and all. So the criminals or the offenders are getting emboldened. Nothing happens to them. So they are re-indulging into these things. So we need to see that all these important crimes, white collar crimes, are disposed of by the courts by setting up the fast track courts and other things. So what I was suggesting was this revamping of laws. You need to continuously revamp your legislations or the laws. Then the depriving the economic offenders of the proceeds of crime. This is very important. So the crime, the amount of money or the proceeds which they got through by committing crime, we should deprive them. Then the bail provisions have to be tightened, and you have to create exclusive courts, and you have to need to simplify the court procedure also. It is a procedure. It's court's procedure, because people tend to take a lot of adjournments. So in the process, it is taking so many years. And then notifying economic offenders on the internet, because same set of people, they move from one place to other and they keep on committing crime. So people should know, if you put them on their internet, these are the people who have committed crime here, at least people will come to know and they will take precautions. And also there are a lot of enforcing agencies which are there. So we need to have a coordinated action among all these enforcing agencies if you want to prevent them and if you want to successfully take them through the prosecution. And of course, ultimately, the final thing is the education, because the ethics and morals are very, very important. Suppose if you don't teach them that in the process of education, just you give them degrees, I mean, it is not going to suffice. So basically, educational institution, in addition to these, whatever is the curriculum, lot of values and need to be inculcated in the citizens. If the citizens are good, if they are with values, then they will not commit these crimes. Suppose if you see some of the Scandinavian countries or some of the countries who are doing extremely well in corruption, like you see Norway, Sweden, Finland, New Zealand, and all these, Japan, all these countries, wherein the basic education system it makes them individual. Then they don't commit such type of crime. So that is also part of the thing to prevent such type of crimes. So this is what I said. I'll make a small presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Wonderful, Lex. It's been great listening to you. You're such a cool presenter. I was thinking on a lighter note that today I avoided a white collar, but eventually you came around my collar, and such a color was also included. It's a great learning. It's a great learning that there are so many types of frauds. Thank you so much for providing this insight into the anatomy of frauds. It's like a doctor's precision. You have gone into it clinically and examined and identified. The scope, meaning, and definition of white-collar fraud is actually an eye-opener for all of us. In our day-to-day busy schedules, we get going without taking cognizance of the fact that there are all these happenings that are there, but we only get to see that in news, either in newspaper or on television. Unless and until it is affecting us personally, we don't pay that kind of attention. But as you mentioned, sir, these scams and frauds are affecting the health of the nation, the health of the nation's economy and nation's reputation as well. I think the ramifications are much bigger and wider. So we would also like to thank you for giving certain steps that you mentioned in terms of prevention and a comparative note that you have made with respect to what is happening in other countries with respect to such frauds and how they're grappling with this kind of phenomenon. In the Q&A session that is going to follow now, I'm sure we are going to have very, very interesting questions and responses coming from you. I'll take one moment to acknowledge the fact that today we are joined by very, very interesting participants from varied backgrounds. There was a mention of Times of India in one of your slides, which they reported harsh punishment. We are joined by a senior journalist from Times of India. Welcome, Deepal Gala. We are joined by a war veteran, Air Marshal Harikumar. Welcome, sir. And we are joined by various other leaders from all walks of life. I extend a warm welcome to all of you. And we are going to begin what is called a very, very interesting on the Q&A. There are two clusters of questions, sir. The first cluster will be taken up by Professor Prasad. I'll come back for the second cluster. And during the second cluster, we'll open the mic for the participants to directly talk to you, apart from a few questions that we may have. Over to you, Professor Prasad, and thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Thank you, sir, for laying out the landscape. In fact, some of the questions which are there, I think you already responded to them. There were questions like evolution and trends in white-collar fraud, and you started from Arthashastra.
Yeah.
And I think about how do you differentiate between various types of frauds. I think that also you have touched upon. So I'll start with what perhaps can be an illustration. So if you look at some of these cases, of course, one of which we have also handled, the Satyam case, or perhaps Rajat Gupta of McKinsey, I mean, that kind of a case. What are the root causes factors which contribute to white-collar fraud? If it can be illustrated as a case in the case of Satyam as an outline for us to understand, that would be useful to the participants.
Definitely. Because any corporate company, they want to lead the business. That is always there. I mean, the leading the business, you can always do by putting more efforts or making more efforts or improving your business. So unfortunately, in Satyam, what happened is that, I mean, the company was doing very good. There is no doubt. It started off well. And also it was competing with other companies like Wipro and Infosys and other companies also. But suddenly they wanted to increase their business. They wanted to increase their business and they wanted to be number one in the process. They started showing additional revenue. That means generally what these software companies or the companies do is they get orders from various companies. Say, for example, Air India gives a project to this company. So they execute this project and they charge them, and that is how they get money. So in the process, what they started doing is they started showing false invoices. Suppose say Air India gave them 20 crores of work, but they started showing in their books that Air India had given them 30 crore worth of work. So the additional 10 crores is going to be shown as their revenue. That means they are going to have their business they are showing, they have started showing in their books, they are doing more business. So once it is like TRP ratings of any TV channel. If your TRP rating is good, you get more advertisements. So if you are doing more business, so definitely more and more companies will give you work. This is what they thought. But unfortunately, that did not happen. The pace at which they started fudging their accounts, but the business did not actually increase in the real terms. So then they had to continue this fudging. They thought initially for 1 quarter they will do. Subsequently, they are going to get more business. Then they need not have to do this fudging and they can actually do the real business. But that did not happen. So they had to continue this process, and the process became uncontrollable. I mean, they could not sustain or they could not tolerate it. And finally, he had to confess that there was a big gap between what is happening and what is the real business. So that is how the whole this thing happened. So after this scam, the Companies Act got amended, and also a concept of internal external audit has started. Earlier, what used to happen is in the corporate companies, they used to have internal audit by their own auditors. So after this, the concept of external internal auditing has also started. And also, especially the board of directors role also has become very crucial. And also the red flag system has been introduced. So because of this particular case, a lot of changes have happened in the country. So ultimately, it is the competition. You want to be number one in the business, and I mean, if you do it by shortcuts, this is what is going to happen. That is what is the realization in the Satyam scams. Or actually, it's a very interesting case for the students also. I mean, maybe after some time we can have an exclusive presentation on this particular case, so that people come to know how the accounts have been fudged, how the false fixed deposit receipts have been prepared, all these things, so that I mean, when they go out and become the chartered accountants or some other cost accountants and all, it will be useful for them. It is available on the net also, some of the things, but I mean, we having conducted the investigation, we can throw more light into the overall these things. Yes, Professor Prasad.
Thank you, sir, for giving us an outline and the major dimensions of what actually took place. Just a supplementary to that, sir, in the case of the auditor, they had auditors who are external professionals.
Yes.
But what was that difference there? I mean, is it because of the law or because of the practice?
I mean, generally, the chartered accountants are supposed to be watchdogs. So watchdogs should not become lapdogs. Once they become lapdogs, then what happens is the procedures get compromised. Actually, in fact, in this case, the juniors in that particular company or the particular accounting firm, they showed them their concerns that there is something wrong is happening. That's what they reported also. But the top two people who were actually doing the, who are appointed as the chartered accountants, they asked them to keep quiet. And a lot of their queries, they were buried. And whatever fraud was happening, it was supported by them. They were part of the fraud. I mean, the part of the conspiracy which was happening. That's why ultimately they had to be roped in as accused in this case. So that's why the role which they are supposed to discharge, they could not discharge. It is a violation of the ICAI code also, because the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, they have their own code and also the work ethics that is also against them. So departmentally, they have taken action. They have barred them from practicing lifelong. And also at the same time, they had to face the criminal charges also, being part of the conspiracy, larger conspiracy.
Thank you, sir. The other supplementary dimension I had was with respect to the board. Now, perhaps the laws may not have been strong enough, but wasn't there that sense of they were very eminent people on the board? What was the gap there?
Generally, what happens is we go by face values most of the times. So once the company is good and they are performing, I mean, what they are saying, they are performing. Every quarter, they used to say that next quarter we'll give you so much of dividend, and they are delivering. So that's why when the things are going on good, I mean, you don't get that suspicion. And also, it is the job of the chartered accountants to present the health of the company to the board of directors. Board of directors, no doubt, they're all reputed people, but they're not doing the actual auditing. They depend on these auditing firms, I mean, because of their presentation, they could never smell the rat. So ultimately, the whole thing has happened because, in fact, we interacted with those independent director also. They told us the same thing. Sir, at the face value, we were going and everything, we thought it is going good. But ultimately, when such thing happened, we also felt very sorry that we could not go deep into the accounts and we could not bring it out. So that is what it is because, but they were not part of the conspiracy. That's why they were not charged. But the SEBI, they have taken because SEBI basically looks into the Companies Act, the role of an independent director also. It is very, very important. So they have taken them under the Companies Act. I mean, I think some action has been initiated against them.
Thank you, sir. So you've listed out 3 reasons, if I could summarize. One is the false sense of competition.
Yes.
Second is the gaps in the regulation. And third is gaps in professionalism. Of course,
yes.
apart from taking things at face value.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. And right now, I mean, we have a lot of, these startups and particularly in the tech space where a lot of question marks are getting raised again. So very, very apt situation as well as apt discussion, sir, on this.
Yeah, the shortcuts are generally going to create a lot of issues. I mean, maybe temporarily we can feel that we have overcome that, but in the long term, I mean, all these shortcuts are going to come out finally because all these things are on paper. Everything is documented. So, I mean, you can't just brush them aside.
Thank you, sir. So here another related question is, what are the best practices being used by other nations in tackling white collar fraud? And is there something more that India needs to adopt here?
Yeah, definitely this new things which have started like the internal external auditors. And also, I think you have to rotate the auditors. You should not keep them for a long time. So all these things have taken place, and also the role of the independent directors also. So that is very important. I mean, generally, I mean, they are supposed to go deep into the things and they are supposed to have an independent discussion with the auditors who are doing the auditing. And also, I mean, randomly, they should pick up some of the things and they may test for themselves. Suppose in Satyam, had they asked why so much of money is being put in current account, if you see their accounts, a lot of money was put in the current account. Generally, current account doesn't yield you any interest. So, I mean, a small question like this. And also, second thing is, why so many people are on the bench? If you see the thing, because when your business, you are showing in the accounts that your revenue has increased. So in order to show to the world that you started recruiting more people, they did not have any work because there was no business. So they had to be on the bench. So when other competitive company or the other companies, there was not that much of bench strength. Why there is so much of bench strength in the, because the buzzword outside is that if you join this company, you need not have to work more. You have to go swipe your card, sit there, and evening again you swipe and come out. This is what is going on in the market. So the eyes and ears of these independent directors also should be open. They should know what is happening inside, and they should actually question during the meetings why this is what is being talked about the company. So such type of eyes and ears being open, because basically this we are doing maybe after the fraud is committed, but when the things were going on, everybody was feel good factor was there. So then nobody was getting such type of doubts. But anyway, once you are professionally involved, you have to do the professionalism is very, very important. So the professionalism, I always say, I mean, you do the work whether you are being supervised or not. A professional is one who does the work even there is nobody is supervising him. Because generally people change their behavior when somebody is supervising. Then that person, we cannot call him as a profession. So this is what happened in this company also. As you mentioned rightly, this lack of professionalism. And also, if you see, I mean, we compared the fee that is paid to the chartered accountants also. I mean, when we compared Infosys, Wipro, and this company, always this company was almost paying about 3 to 4 times the this thing. They were charging 3 to 4 times more. So then these independent directors, they could have got the sense, I mean, why so much of money is being paid to these auditors? So such type of red flags, they should have risen, but they did not happen. Anyway, now it has come into the system. Now it has come into the system. All these things are incorporated. And also what we suggested at the time was that generally most of the companies, they used to submit the performance of their company or the quarterly reports in a written form to the ROC. What we suggested was let them submit online. Let them submit online so that the computer system can take, the software can take care and it can raise the red flags. Suppose this quarter, this much amount was there in the current account. Now this much, automatically you can have a software program which can put so many red flags into the system. That's what happens in the other countries, as you were mentioning. All the submissions were online. Now, of course, they have made online. These are all improvements after this particular case has happened.
Excellent, sir. I think there are a lot of points which have come out, and as you rightly said, it needs a separate discussion and case study analysis to understand this and compare it with what's happening. Thank you, sir. PricewaterhouseCoopers report on global economic crime and fraud survey of 2022 recently released with India Insights. They say that 57% of the frauds in India are platform frauds, basically social media, e-commerce, enterprise and fintech. Of course, you have touched on this. Would you like to comment a bit more in detail for us to understand?
Yeah, basically nowadays most of the things we are doing online. All the transactions, the whole economic transactions or the financial transactions have changed. And also because of these smartphones which are coming, and also, I mean, basically they are giving you so many guidelines. I mean, you need to change your password. You should not download the things because suddenly something comes to you, you start downloading. Suddenly some messages come to you and you react to them. They suddenly say that your mobile phone or your SIM card is going to be stopped and you try to give us the, I mean, we are going to do that. Or the electricity bills also, sometimes you get a message saying that we can pay your electricity bills. So there are so many frauds that are happening. I mean, when it comes to individual level, there is a place called Jamtara in Jharkhand. There is a district called Jamtara. This cyber crime is the cottage industry there. Majority of the fraud that is happening in the country over this cyber this thing is from that village Jamtara. So when you get a phone call, you can easily make out. Those people will speak to you in Hindi and they will force you. And there are so many things that are happening. I mean, again, a nude call, this thing is also a big threat. Every day, some people, somebody or the other is committing suicide. If you see the newspaper, suddenly something happens, they try to defame you. So this is what is happening. So a lot of individuals are getting affected because of this cyber crime. So my advice to all of them is that you have to be extremely careful and you have to follow the regular procedure which is being said. Often you change your password and also have difficult passwords. Generally, we try to keep our date of birth as the password. This is very easy to guess nowadays. So we need to take extreme precautions to see, and also you need to have sufficient firewalls. And there are also so many McAfee and other your protection tools are also there. I mean, they may be costing you, but they will. And also, most of the people, what they do is they try to hide. If something happens to them, I mean, they will try to hide the things, and in the process, they start losing money continuously. So immediately they should report to the cybercrime people and they can make an online complaint. I think 1092 is the number given by the government of India, a toll-free number. And also I think www.cybercrime.gov.in. This is the website. Immediately, if you can report to that, they are really acting fast and they are informing the bank portals also to stop the transactions and to trace them back also. So we need to fight, and I mean, because we are all connected, these things are going to be there. We need to take more and more precautions. That is one thing I advise to youngsters, especially who are getting into this.
Very useful input, sir. Now, coming back to the same report, it also says that about 40% of frauds have an internal person and an additional 27% have an internal person and an external person. It means about 2/3 of this kind of fraud has an organizational basis. Now, in this context, what would you suggest to organization, any organization, what are kind of controls they should have in place in order to mitigate or reduce the risk of this?
Even if you see our literature and this thing also, it says it is very good, very difficult to catch the thief who is there inside our house. So inti dongani Iswarudaina butler antar. So that is a big issue. So the same thing is happening, insider outsider combination. Even all these white collar frauds which I have referred, the bank scams and other scams also, definitely the people, the public servants are involved. If you take the Nirav Modi scam also, the PNB officials, they are deeply involved in it. They were accepting the continuously his reports and also his invoices they are reporting. So we need to have a check, because the combination of insiders and outsiders, as they mentioned, about 27% also, or even more than that, that is going to happen. So these insider people also, we need to be extremely careful, and also we need to introduce systems in place. What income tax department has done nowadays, it is a faceless assessment nowadays. Earlier, what used to happen is people used to go and submit their income tax returns in the income tax office. Now you are not supposed to go. You need not. You are not supposed to go, and you are to upload all your income tax returns online. Even if a scrutiny is done, then also you need not have to attend the office. It is done on the system itself. Online it is done. And also the officer who is doing the scrutiny also doesn't know who he is actually, whose account is being scrutinized. So such type of faceless system is being introduced. So in every system, this, in every process, a lot of systems checks have to be, checks and balances have to be introduced. So this human element we need to remove. So finally the human element, if you can remove in the form of technology or in the form of this computer programming or whatever is the applications and all, then automatically the individual or human element, if you can remove, then substantially we can reduce the frauds also.
Thank you, sir. So bringing in systems,
yeah,
and as well as eliminating the human element to the extent possible are two suggestions that you will give it here. So last question about this, the organization. So now we've referred to ethics, and we've also referred to professionalism.
Yes.
There are programs are running for all the professional, professional programs. There is a course on ethics, or there's something on ethics, and yet we find that that is not good enough. Now, what do you think can be done in addition to introducing these programs, etc.?
Yeah, because the basic thing has to start when the child is small. That is the problem. Right from elementary education or right from home, these two things should be taught. Generally, off late with these nuclear families and all, it is becoming very difficult. So that's why the earlier older generations and all, there used to be grandparents used to be there at home. They used to teach them a lot of things, and they used to keep a tab on them and all. Nowadays, because of the peer pressure also, nothing of that sort is going on. If you see youngsters committing crime, their number is substantially increasing. They're, they are in the engineering college students and other students also. They are indulging in a lot of these crimes. That is basically because of the peer pressure, and also the importance being attributed to money. Earlier, if you go to villages, we used to ask who is a great man here. They used to take us to a teacher or some other person who is doing social service or somebody elderly person. But now the measure of greatness is the amount of money you have. So if you have more money, you are a great person. That is the general understanding in the society. So that is where the deterioration in the standards are coming. So right from home, I always say your home, your school, and your temple. So these three institutions have to take care to convert an individual into a person with morals and ethics, wherein he will not indulge at all. If a person is good, he will not indulge. Suppose if the person is not good, you have to put fear in him by stringent laws, by immediately, by using fast track courts if the cases are solved immediately, so that it sends a lesson to the other people also. Suppose, say, if you commit a crime, maybe within a year you are convicted and you are sent to jail, then a fear will be there in the people. Suppose if you commit a crime and if the case goes on for 15, 20 years, so that fear won't be there. So all these measures which I was suggesting as a preventive measures, so they need to be implemented.
Fantastic, sir. I think what you're also suggesting is that the momentum in society is against us in terms of how it's building up, and therefore we need counter systems in
Yes.
order to put this in place.
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. We come to the end of this cluster. I hand it
Yeah.
back to Professor Rao.
Thank you very much, sir. Your responses have been pretty interesting, especially in a context where you had the first-hand experience of investigating into many of these high-profile cases. So there's an additional question that somebody has texted into my mobile. I'll start with that and then go on to the other landscape questions. Compared to what we watch in movies, you as a CBI officer, you look very cool and smart. You don't look scary in the first appearance. So the question was about how did it work out in the high-profile cases that you handled, and probably the questioner wanted to learn from you. How did you handle the pressure so much? Because in high-profile cases, probably the visibility is very high about the investigator himself, and there could be wider ramifications also, both personally as well as professionally. So how did you as a leader manage these pressures, pulls and pushes around you, sir?
In fact, attached detachment is very important. I mean, that is, I never used to take my office home. So whatever I used to do at home and at office, I used to leave it there and get back to home, and he used to be a family man there. That is very important. And also you are doing these cases as a professional. That is also very important. Once you have these type of attitudes, then there won't be any pressure on you. That means you are paid for that and you are doing this particular thing. That is one thing. And also, of course, my regular physical exercises, maybe my yoga and pranayama also helped me. That's why I always tell all people to do pranayama, because I do Sudarshan Kriya every day. So that also helps us a lot. So in remaining cool, because when you are in a fit of anger, you won't take, your decision-making ability will reduce. So you need to be cool, then only your decisions will be stronger. I always try to encourage my junior colleagues also with that. And also I try to tell them. So many people have followed. And also whatever you are doing, I mean, as I was mentioning, this attached detachment is very important. So some people, they get unnecessarily over involved in the whole this thing, and they unnecessarily get a lot of pressure. So that you need not have to do. And also, of course, in working in the organizations also, whatever you want, you should be able to write it on paper open. That is one thing. That is one thing this organization gives us an opportunity. I mean, whatever I want, I can write. Nobody used to pressurize us that you do like this and all. Whatever best to my understanding, I used to understand, and there are seniors to guide us, and nobody used to pressurize us to do this way or that way. So that is one thing which has been excellent, which when I was there, I mean, it was an added thing to our this thing. And also we used to have a what is known as a multidisciplinary thing, which I always started. Because if you take, for example, the Satyam case, there is a lot of accountancy is involved and a lot of balance sheets need to be studied. Because I, being a mechanical engineer, I did in one semester, I did accountancy. I mean, that knowledge will not be sufficient for me to analyze these things. So what we started doing is, we started roping in experts into our team. We had 2-3 chartered accountants from outside. We hired them. We had some cost accountants with them. We had some cybercrime experts with us. So all these people used to help us in understanding the whole issue, and also how the investigation has to be carried out. Even if you see the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, they always said, you try to have multidisciplinary teams. Once you have multidisciplinary teams, your speed of investigation also improves, and also the thoroughness comes in the investigation also. So that is one thing which we followed in the investigation of, as you mentioned, the high-profile cases.
Thank you, sir. Great inputs of de-stressing or balancing one's pressure is to have an attached detachment, and yoga and pranayama, as you have mentioned, that's what we have to learn from. In normal work conditions where such high profile visibility is not involved, even there are other kinds of work pressures where yoga would definitely help. And of course, roping in experts would increase the speed and at the same time efficiency of the investigation. Thank you so much, sir. We are joined by our distinguished advisor, Professor Mahendra Reddy. He sent in a question and I would like to raise that question, sir. And that is, what are the challenges faced by the law enforcement agencies like ED, CBI in maintaining the balance between genuine rights and genuine raids and those motivated politically?
I mean, what happens is generally this political attributes you're attributed to political this thing whenever some politicians are involved in these cases. So generally they say that because they are in the opposition, the cases are being filed against them or the raids are being planted like that. I mean, that is the usual things, because I can only talk about my tenure and also what I am seeing nowadays. But if you see the number of cases that are happening, some statistics are also out. About 94% of the raids, they are on the people from the opposition parties. That's what generally the statistics have come out. That will definitely lead to some suspicion. So then generally what I am suggesting now is that let these enforcing agencies, maybe the CBI or maybe the Enforcement Directorate, let them be taken out from the control of the ministries. Let them be put under the control of the Lokpal. We have all created Lokpal as an organization headed by a Supreme Court judge. So we all brought, because, you know, Mr. Anna Hazare has sat on hunger strike there, and finally they wanted Jan Lokpal, but a diluted form of Lokpal has been there. So if you want to come out of such accusations, some type of you're being accused that it is being used as a weapon to tame the opposition parties, if you really want to get out of that, better to keep these agencies, enforcing agencies, under the control of an independent body instead of under the ministries. So that type of impression if people get, then it is not good for a democracy. It is not good for a democracy, because the respectability of the institutions have to be maintained. They should not be used. They may not be using, but apparently, that's why they say justice should not be done, but it should be manifestedly and undoubtedly seem to be done also. So from outside also, it should appear that justice is being done. So when such type of questions are being raised, so as a government, they should come out with an alternative. No, this ED is no longer, it is going to be under the Ministry of Finance, and CBI, it's no longer will be under the PMO. So let them be under the Central Vigilance Commission and also the Lokpal. So such type of steps need to be taken, and I have been advocating this also.
Great, sir. That's a fantastic suggestion, that investigating agencies like ED, CBI may be brought under independent body like Lokpal, and that is where objectivity and probably transparency, speed will also be obtained. Thank you so much for that, sir. I will now open the mic for Mr. Arun Kaul to ask his question. Over to you, Mr. Arun.
Good evening, sir. Actually, you've already answered my question before I could ask it.
Yes,
but I'd like to ask a related question, which is that, we keep hearing about police reforms, that there have been a lot of recommendations made to have some reforms. And I think these have been made many, many years back, I think more than 10, 15 years back. Yes, so would you like to comment on that a bit? Of course, you've already covered about politicians and corruption and independent bodies and not controlled by the ministry themselves. That's a very good thing. But what about other police reforms? Could you comment on that, sir?
Yes, definitely. There have been a police reform commission, sir, way back headed by Mr. Dharamvira. The first police reform commission was appointed for the police reforms. They have suggested so many reforms. Some have come. Then the crusader is Mr. Prakash Singh, who himself is an Indian police service officer. He has, through a public interest litigation, he has brought so many police reforms. Police organization, if you see, there are 3 posts which are very, very important, sir. You are a Thanedar, you are a police station in charge. Then the superintendent of police or the commissioner of police, and then the director general of police. These are the 3 important positions. Of course, the rest of the people are there, but they are the crucial position in the hierarchy, police hierarchy. So after these reforms, what he said is all these people should have a tenure of 2 years minimum. Otherwise, politicians at their whims and fancies, they start transferring them. So that is one biggest reforms which he has brought. And also they said there should be a state security commission wherein the opposition and reputed people, they all should be a part of the body, and they should consider about the police functioning also. There should be periodical discussions that should take place. And also they have come up with police establishment boards regarding transfers. Generally, postings and transfers are very, very crucial in any organization, especially in police. So these police establishment boards also have come because of Mr. Prakash Singh's efforts. And also there are a lot of things need to be done, sir. And also in the criminal procedure code and also in the criminal justice system, Justice Malimat Commission was appointed way back in 2003. They have come up with a lot of suggestions, but somehow those suggestions, recommendations have not been implemented. Unless you reform the law, unless you reform the procedures, unless you reform these postings and transfers, because what I always say is police is the representative of the government on the streets. People always gauge the government by the performance of the police. So police organization is very, very important. And also if you need development in your place, you need to have good policing. That's why if you see states where there is peace and where there is justice, where there is enforcement of rule of law, it attracts a lot of investment. In the states where there is no rule of law, no investor would try to go there and invest his money. So that is what we have been telling the politicians and also the legislative executives also, that maintenance of rule of law is very, very important in the courts. And also a lot of people are going to the courts also, sir, to get these police reforms, and also a lot of reforms need to be done. I always say that the performance of the police should not just be decided by their senior hierarchy, but by the people whom they are serving. Suppose if I am a superintendent of police in a district, my performance, 50% of my performance should be appraised by my senior who is supervising my work, and 50% of my performance should be rated by the people or the stakeholders for whom I am serving. So such type of reforms in the performance appraisal of an officer also comes, that also makes him more accountable to the people, and also people will feel that they also have a role in assessing the performance. And because democracy is ultimately of the people, by the people and for the people, then definitely it will come. These are some of the suggestions we have given also, sir, and let us see how it works out.
That's a wonderful answer, sir. The only related thing I can suggest is that the Election Commission of India should also have something to, restrict criminals becoming politicians and MPs and MLAs, because every party, irrespective of opposition, this thing, every party is fielding a very large number of criminals. And I think unless those criminals are not elected, I think these things will probably continue. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for a wonderful answer.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. That's an amazing response. Very, very interesting as well. I'll request Dr. Ashok to raise his question in the meet. Yeah, he's ready.
Sir, good evening, Lakshmi Narayana, sir, and Prasad, sir. Am I audible, sir?
You are audible, and in the chat I have seen a lot of your observations also.
Thank you so much, sir. And my small question was, we are using Israel for espionage purposes and all that. Can't we use them for white collar crime also?
I mean, can you? There was a disturbance in you.
Israel we use for espionage purposes, counter-espionage and all that. We have good relations with them. Can we utilize their services for preventing white collar crimes, sir? I mean, these password crimes and all that, OTT crimes and all that, those are happening. It's a very down-to-earth question, sir.
All others who wanted to ask questions can stay there. We will definitely open the mic for you. Just a moment, when sir is actually going to come back and respond to your questions. There's a technical glitch. All the questions that you have put in the chat box and in the Q&A box are very interesting, and it is always it's always a matter of great learning when we are able to interact with the leader personally and directly. So this opportunity has been provided. Thank you so much for making it so interesting. The voice was echoing and there's a jarring effect of the output of your sound. Therefore, we have muted you, but the question is understood by Lakshmi Narayana sir, so he will come back and answer. And all others also who have questions may raise hands. We'll give preference to you directly asking the questions. In the absence of that, we will resort to the questions that we are already armed with. So as is the norm, we would like to make it live and interesting. These questions are being taken up for the first time and they're all taken up live. Therefore, the responses are holding so much of potential for learning for all of us when the leader is speaking and responding to those questions. Yeah, in a normal case, we are preparing very well for these sessions in terms of the past work and the present work executed and done by the leader himself. And we are trying to map it with the best standards and practices that we have across the world. And so we try to bring the best and see what are the takeaways in the whole conversation. And those takeaways, if they can be tangibly listed, we would feel very happy. I'll just take this call from sir. Hold the line, please.
I think meanwhile, we have a lot of takeaways from what has already happened for the subject of management itself. We have management control systems, we have ethics, we have recruitment, we have performance management. Whatever has been said impacts virtually many fields. I think if you realize it, it impacts our day-to-day lives also. So the question of whether we are professional or not, and if we are not supervised by somebody, are we going to do work up to the same standard? I think that's a very critical question to all of us. Thank you.
Great. Sir is joining on his mobile owing to a power failure that is an unexpected outage at his place. This is a rainy season and we need to actually factor in this. He's joining from his mobile. We will have him come back and we will raise those few important questions. Welcome back, sir.
Yes, sir. Now I'm again logged on with my mobile phone. Yeah, because there is a power cut here. I mean, yeah.
Yes, I have explained to them. Sir, would you like to answer the question raised by Dr. Ashok?
Yeah, because he was talking about the espionage and all. Actually, we are bound by this Indian Telegraph Act. In the Indian Telegraph Act, it has been mentioned, especially take, for example, the keeping a phone under surveillance. All these things they are bound by the Telegraph Act. Under this, certain things have been mentioned. So crimes committed against the sovereignty of the nation or friendly relationship with foreign countries or public order, there are certain things only we can use this espionage type of this thing or the Israeli equipment which he is talking about. But actually what my understanding is that if the people at the helm of affairs, if their eyes and ears are open, such type of frauds can be avoided. Generally what happens is even the bank frauds also generally at a higher level, such type of sanctions generally they take place. Analyze all the banking scams or the scams which I have mentioned, maybe Nirav Modi, Mehul Choksi and other things. All these things have happened at a very higher level. So that's why we always try to encourage people in the hierarchy or in the down in the system also. I mean, they should do this dispassionately. That is very important, and they should not succumb to the pressures. They should not succumb to the pressures of the people who are sitting at the helm of affairs. Take the case of this thing, Videocon case with ICFAI, what is happening. So all these things will throw a light that it generally happens at a higher level of interference. That should not happen. And also a lot of protection should be given to people who are working very sincerely in the organization. This is also very important, and they should not become scapegoats in the process. That is an important thing. Then we can always avoid such type of scams or the white collar frauds that are happening all over. Yeah.
That's a great suggestion, sir. I think protection for whistleblowers will also definitely help in the long run. I will request Lavanya Garu to raise her question. Over to you, Lavanya Garu.
Good evening, sir. Thanks a lot for the wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
My question, you had mentioned Enron case in the US, and subsequently there was the Sarbanes-Oxley Act in US, and some years later the Dodd-Frank Act. So
Yes.
were the amendments to Indian Companies Act modeled based on those acts?
Yeah, because Enron after that also many frauds have taken place. There is no
Yes,
doubt. But whatever you plug it, generally there are some other methods of because people come out with various methods because they use their brain. I mean the brain of a person who commits a fraud is he thinks very innovatively because that is also there, and they devise some new methods of fraud. That is always there. That's why there is a concept called ethical hacking in present time computer this thing also. So that means there need to be a brainstorming in the organizations also, how things can go wrong. This is also a brainstorming session has to be held. And also we should start plugging those holes in the organization. That is also very important. So in the hierarchical system also, a free discussion or a brainstorming sessions are going to give rise. And also the people who are there, they should continuously be in touch what is happening in the entire world. Because so many scams, so many frauds are happening. So then from each thing, we should learn and we should introduce some correction methodology, or we should improve, or you should bring some amendments into our systems also. Otherwise, as you mentioned, Enron and other subsequent cases also, a lot of frauds have taken place and they are also taking place. So it is the responsibility of the governments and also the people who are sitting at the helm of affairs to see that such type of things do not happen. It's a continuous process of learning, which we need to incorporate, or we need to inculcate such type of work environment in the organizations also.
So the takeaway is encouraging a culture of open discussions and brainstorming. How can things go wrong? And using those suggestions and ideas to plug in the loopholes to strengthen the systems that you have already built is one of the ways to prevent crimes to happen again in the organizations. I think it has got to do with the governance. It's got to do with the commitment to prevention of crime within the institutions and organizations to deal with. Thank you very much, sir. One more question I would like to ask, and that is this white collar fraud that we are talking about predictable by use of, say, by deploying AI? Can we predict or track these things? What are the latest developments in this regard, sir?
Yeah, definitely. Artificial intelligence is going to play a very important role, because artificial intelligence, it will take into consideration so many factors, and also maybe the blockchain technology also what they are incorporating nowadays. All these things, the technology has to be incorporated that's why I mentioned about the faceless your scrutiny and faceless submission system being developed by the income tax department. Where there is an interface, the interface has to be reduced. Everything has to be by submitting the things online, and also by doing so many cross checks and all. Then only these things need to be. Yes, sir. Artificial intelligence and all these technologies, definitely we have to take their help, and because they work much faster and they consider a lot of data. Because the human brain has a limitation, and also the past record, maybe their involvement somewhere, all these things will get clubbed into this artificial intelligence. Definitely, as you mentioned, artificial intelligence is going to be a big tool to see that this white collar crime is put under check. Yeah.
Great, sir. Great. Thank you so much for that response. There is another interesting, curious, small question that we have. That is, based on your experience, if there could be a commonsensical answer to this that we all of us are aware of, but still we want to ask you this. Is there any relationship between the gravity of fraud and the level of education that people who are indulging in the frauds? Is there any correlation, or what is your observation based on the stats?
Yeah, generally the people who are committing fraud, they are not that educated. But the people who are helping them within the organization, they are very well educated. I mean, I don't call them educated, they are more literate. I always say educated person will not do that, but only a literate person will do that. That's why I always say in Sanskrit, a literate person is called Sakshara. Or just you read it from reverse, it becomes Rakshasa. So literate person is very dangerous. So what we need to churn out from the institutions are the people, educated people should come out, not literates. So the literates are very dangerous people. So the people who are perpetrating crime, maybe you take cases of Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi and all, they are not very well educated, but they are street smart. And they are assisted by the people who are within the organization. So this combination is a deadly combination. So that is where a lot of the big frauds are being committed by them. So if the if the insider is good, then these people, they cannot do anything. But unfortunately, these people within the organization, they are compromising and they are colluding with them, and which is leading to such type of major frauds in the country.
Great, sir. I think what you're saying is that these street smart people are using the literate insiders to perpetrate these kind of crimes.
Yeah.
So that's very. So one small request from one of the members who has already spoken to you. He's asking you to tell us a little more about the serious fraud investigating SFIO.
Yeah. So actually, Serious Fraud Investigation Office is basically deals with the Companies Act. The violations of Companies Act is being looked into by the Serious Fraud Investigation Office, like the role of independent directors, maybe your returns, all these things. So they are the basic people. Even this Satyam case also, SFIO people, they have started the investigation initially because they look into this share market and they look into the stock prices and all. So that is SFIO is the organization. And basically Enforcement Directorate looks into the money laundering part of it. Maybe CBI looks into the criminality part of it. That is how various organizations they work. SFIO, Company Act violations. Enforcement Directorate, they deal with money laundering. And CBI and other law enforcing agencies, they look into the criminality of the thing. So that's why I mentioned there need to be a coordination between all these organizations so that no, this thing is left out and they will not get any benefit in the court of law. So that your cases should be so close knitted so that there won't be any where they can get a benefit of doubt from the courts. This is where I always mention.
Great, sir. Great. So a coordinated effort from all the involved agencies will not provide any escape route for the criminals.
Escape for them. Yes.
That's great. That's great. Sir, who will deal with the ulterior motive involved in committing a fraud? For example, I may be wrong. Take Satyam's scam. False sense of competition is the obvious reason why they had inflated their bills and the FDRs created. But when the organization is already doing well, when they do not have any pressure for the venture capitalists like the way the present day startups have, which make them do certain other kinds of overvaluations, a well-established organization like Satyam, why did they have to go? Who was behind putting additional pressure on them to actually create higher revenues? Could that be?
Basically, as I mentioned, they wanted to be number one in the whole IT field. So for that, as I mentioned, they thought they will do for 1 or 2 quarters this fudging, but the circumstances did not help them. So they had to continue with the fudge. It's like my son coming with a mark sheet, with a fudged mark sheet, thinking that he will do well in the next examination by preparing well. But he did not prepare well and he preferred that he can fudge the mark sheet much better. So that is how he kept on continuing till the end. So what they thought did not work out. So, but what you promised, you had to continue. So ultimately you landed up in that mess. That is what you say. As you are mentioning, for any crime, 2 ingredients are required. One is mens rea and the other one is actus reus, it is called. Mens rea means you should have a mind and you should have a planning. You should have an inclination that you have to do. Second one is the actual deeds, what you do. So you have an idea and then you have actually executed it. So these 2 things put together, they are the components of a crime. So you need to have a motive and you actually executed it. That actually constitutes a crime, which we need to prove it in the court of law. your mens rea, and also your actus reus. Yeah.
Great, sir. Great. We'll take one last question from one
Yeah.
of the participants who has raised the hand. Dr. Muhammad Asif Pasha. While Dr. Asif Pasha is paying a silent tribute to the amazing responses that you're giving, we'll request Ms. Shweta Anand to raise her question. Over to you, Shweta ji.
Very good evening, sir.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
So yeah, it was a very thoughtful talk, and you have culminated your years of experience into this talk which you have delivered. So I was reading about artificial neural networks, and I came to know that it depends on the learning of the machine, the tons of data that you expose it to, the higher would be the yield, the learning yield would be higher. So I'm just wondering, is there any systematic knowledge transfer which is happening at CBI, which is happening actually based on all these years of your experience of tracking down such frauds which are happening in the corporates? And are we working somewhere into training the machine as to how to tackle all these incidences? What are the triggers? What are the points which needs to be checked? Is there any systematic knowledge transfer?
Generally, these organizations, they maintain data pertaining to the cases which are handled by them. And actually, there is a concept department called NatGrid, which actually collects the information from various organizations, and it collates and keeps it as a repository, wherein automatically all these law enforcing agencies, they can make use of the information in tracking down, as you mentioned, and also the various people that are involved, because maybe one organization, maybe CBA has its own information, ED has its own information, then SFIO has its own information, but all these informations put together, I think there is a concept called NatGrid that has been developed. It is collecting all this information, and whichever organizations wants, they can take information from them, and they can pursue or maybe to prevent the offenses, and also to spread a warning message to people. So this particular mechanism is in place. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. NatGrid is a great repository of knowledge transfer across investigating
information. Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Dr. Muhammad, your chance now. Looks like there is a problem at Dr. Muhammad's handle. Sir, we have spoken to you on many issues as diverse as possible in a given situation like this. The topic arouses lots of curiosity, most of it governed by lack of knowledge and ignorance from us who are outside the investigating agencies. People have joined from various walks of life like education, technology, business, entrepreneurship, sports, spirituality, so on and so forth. And therefore, the attempt to learn from you based on your first-hand experience into investigating these cases, and as a leader, how you have managed to handle the pressures was also inquired into. Thank you so much for your patient response. In spite of the difficulties like power outages, couple of times you have joined back. I'm immensely grateful to you for your patience, and with that inimitable style, you have managed the entire show. Thank you so much. That itself is a great deal for us to learn from. So in summary, I would like to mention, sir, I am not taking the other questions, but we will write to you, sir, subsequently, either on WhatsApp, on email, and probably have your responses. And the other one, before I get to the summary, is that we have just written one beautiful case on Satyam's scam. I know it's about 15 years hence, but there was a book that was released, how the board managed to revive Satyam, how Satyam has become Tech Mahindra. After that launch, based on the book, we have written a case depending on the requirements of the authors. And when that case is run as a competition, it's going to be a competition. We will request you at the time, as per your convenience, to come into our classroom and share the other side of the details of accounting fraud that you have been a witness to and part of investigation. That would be a
Sure.
great way of handling a case, sir.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, we are the largest repository. We produce lots of cases, about 7,000 cases we have written in management education. We are ranked number 2 and 3 in the world after Harvard and INSEAD. Sometimes number 2 and sometimes number 3. Case study methodology is one of the best methods of teaching and learning. And therefore, when a protagonist or a person who is involved in the whole process is part of the case discussion after the students have attempted to crack it and make presentation, it will be a fantastic experience of an input. Of course, input we give as a third party generally most of the times, but when somebody like you is present who has dealt with the case in real time during your investigation, that input and the value and experience of that input will be amazing. As an institution, we would dream of providing such.
I'll be there. Sir. I'm in the process. I can learn also. Yeah.
Great, sir. Great. So this evening has been fantastic. A lot of topics and a lot of new terminologies that we have really been helped to look at while understanding the anatomy of the fraud, not just white collar frauds, but there are many other colors of the crime. In terms of what you have explained to us. Thank you so much for providing a detailed account. India has witnessed its fair share of white collar frauds that shook the nation. Some of the most infamous scams that you also have listed have been Harshad Mehta scam, Satyam, Vijay Mallya Kingfisher Airlines scam, Sarada Chit Fund scam, Sahara scam, Nirav Modi PNB scam, Island FS scam, and of course the Yes Bank scam, which you have talked also. But these fraudulent activities are not just restricted to India. It has, it's not limited to this. It is global phenomenon. Several high-profile cases have sent shockwaves through financial markets around the world, like our Enron case, which you have talked about in the United States, Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme, which is usually talked about. Volkswagen emission scandal is another one. Like in India, we have seen Reebok oversales, inflating the sales scandal. That was also a small, well, I should not say small or big, because sometimes the number of crores that we are attributing to the scam is say 20 crores or 200 crores or 2000 crores. The impact could be much larger for the parties involved and for the stakeholders. And the practices that we are unleashing are actually very, very unhealthy. Therefore, it has wider ramifications, as you have mentioned in the initial. So these things are not just restricted to India, it is happening all across. We want to thank you this evening for drawing from your rich and extensive experience as a seasoned law enforcement professional by delving deep into the intricate world of white-collar crimes and uncovering its patterns and suggesting valuable insights on how to prevent it. On behalf of everyone at ICFAI and on behalf of all the participants and also on behalf of Professor Prasad, we would like to thank you for this amazing session. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week on 14th of July with yet another leader, and the leader is going to be talking about how do you transform yourself into a high performance leader. We are going to bring in a business and leadership coach. She's a lady leader who is going to talk to us, and we are all eager to learn from her along with you. So see you on 14th of July at 6:30 p.m. Till then, keep reading more about these scams and the good work done by Join for Democratic Foundation, started by Sri Lakshmi Narayana, and we'll understand the importance of charity and blending in with incisive information and using it for public good and nation building. See you next week. Good night, and thank you all.